Nick Dutson joins Purpose-Driven Progress today to talk about the intersection of sales and faith, how staying true to your values can drive success in business and in life. Welcome, my friends, to another incredible episode of Purpose-Driven Progress. As always, I am your host, Jacob Hicks, and I got to tell you guys, I am really excited for you guys to be my guest. I have Nick Dutson. He had a journey. It's really, honestly, it's a masterclass in adaptability and perseverance. He started from knocking on doors, selling home security and pest control, to diving into tech sales and custom software. He's built a career on learning, pivoting, and seizing opportunity. Along the way, he even left his job to help scale his wife's wildly successful Etsy shop, proving that an entrepreneurial mindset can thrive anywhere. Now, deeply embedded in the world of custom high-end software, Nick's story is one of resilience, risk-taking, and the faith that fuels it all. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so we're super excited to have you, honestly. But gosh, that's a lot to unpack in your little intro there. So, kind of walk us through your journey a little bit. How did you go from knocking on doors to, helping your wife with a crazy, impressive Etsy shop to now you're in custom software?
So it's been a ride. There's a lot there. But really what it comes down to kind of for me is having an open mind and being open to opportunities. I was young, just fresh out of high school when the sales bro, contacted me and, hey man, you want to make, 50 grand this summer? And, that was 2006 and 50 grand was a lot of money. And I said, obviously I want to do that. And I didn't know anything about sales at that point. That was my first intro to sales. And but I loved it and hated it. I love a relationship a lot of times.
Yes.
But it kind of taught me that there's great, there's success to be had in sales. And I am entrepreneur at heart. I know I'm working a real job right now, but it's I love small business. I love doing my own thing. And so I did a few different sales jobs, from knocking doors and then into some tech sales. And then my wife, she wanted some really expensive curtains, and I told her no. And so she said, I'm going to go make my own money then. And she started selling custom doormats online on Etsy. And it just, we hit it at the right time and it took off. She took a couple of classes to learn how to do it. And it just took off to where she out-salaried me at my tech sales job. And I said, hey, look, we can, I can keep doing this and you can stress and work nights and part-time and wherever you can find hours, or I could quit and we could do this together and you could put full time and I could help with the kids. And we did it. And it was awesome. It was fantastic. It was a lot of fun. We had 2 kids at the time when I quit my job. We had 5 within the next 5 years, not 5 more, but 5 total. And so it changed. A lot of things changed in those 5 years as well on a family level. And so we pretty much made the executive decision to have her kind of go back to mom. Economy was tanking a little bit too, so sales were struggling anyway. And so we thought, you know what, let's go back, switch it up again, and let her be mom and let me go make some money. And so here I am now at Red Sky and loving it.
I love it, man. I love it. So because there's a lot to unpack there. Again, I want to talk about some sales stuff, but I have a confession to make, Nick. I know you're, a doormat connoisseur, everything there is to know about doormats.
Absolutely.
So I've lived in my apartment I was just thinking about this morning, 3.5, 4 years now. Okay. And the doormat, the welcome mat that I have outside my door is the one that was left over from the previous occupant. Hopefully you won't hold that against me too much, but I said I had to get that off my chest.
I will not hold it against you, but we've got some leftovers. So if you want to cover some shipping costs, we'll ship you out a fun one. I'll send you some pictures afterwards.
Oh, okay. Well, you might be able to talk me into that. All right. So I want to talk some sales stuff here, because honestly, your journey and my journey are kind of similar. where like, I feel like if you're interested in sales at all, unless you're, maybe on the luckier side, everybody kind of falls, I don't know if victim's the right word, but we're all susceptible to that sales bro, where the guy's like, hey man, like, you can do this, you can make $1 million in 2 days just doing zero work, right?
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I've been there, and obviously I know that you've been there, but I want to talk about like, so, I mean, I did a lot. I don't know if I told you before we chatted, but my very first sales job, if you want to call it this, was door-to-door sales too. And it was in 8th grade because we had like a 8th grade, field trip plan, but we had to raise some money for it. So I was selling chocolates door to door in 8th grade, and I sold the most. I was number one in my sales team. We went on that trip. But I've done like the real life, door to door sales stuff, and it's a hard road to trot. And both of us have, grown in our careers where, well, I don't know about you, but for me, I'm sitting behind a desk a lot more than I'm out, pounding the pavement anymore. I mean, but I do really believe that like pounding the pavement, like retail, like some of those things are like a really, really great way to cut your teeth, particularly early on in sales, because you have to have some of that trial by fire. So, I mean, do you feel like there's like some really big lessons that you learned early on from that door-to-door experience?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I 100% agree with you.
Mm.
Anybody that I meet that's graduating high school or early in their, college career, I recommend going and doing it.
Yeah.
And I obviously give them some tips and tricks because I did learn firsthand that very first summer, right? I went out knowing nothing, and I was selling home security in Cleveland, Ohio.
Mhm.
And I went out there and just essentially did what I was told. Hey, the
Yeah.
manager trained me. He said, hey, this is what we're selling. And unfortunately, his advice was not good and his training was terrible. In fact, he and the regional manager both ended up fired and put on like a blacklist for door-to-door companies because of how
Yikes.
they were selling. And that's what they had
Wow.
taught me to do. And
Oh
it was
no.
dishonest and it was not great. But I learned a ton from it, right? I learned, so little backstory. I'll tell you kind of what it was, but we were selling home security. And they said, hey, anybody that's already got a home security sign in front of their home, just knock on the door and tell them you're from their home security company.
Ooh,
And
okay.
we're just here to switch out the panel. Because all of the components, the motion sensors and the glass break sensors and door sensors, they're all compatible with with our panel. And so essentially what they did is they had us trick them into putting a new panel up and signing them into an agreement with us. And they still had the agreement with the previous company rather than being
Mm,
honest and saying, hey, we've got a better panel and a better system and we can get you a few more, sensors. Um, they just essentially said, hey, slip in there and get them. And at first, I'm a really naive person, and that's on
yeah.
me, right? I get that, but I was just like, "Sounds good to me. That sounds easy. Like, just go switch out the panel." I didn't
Hmm.
realize the implications, right? Of oh, now they've got two services that they're paying for, and they're probably in contract with the first one. They cannot get out.
Yep.
Now they're in
Hmm.
contract with us, and they also can't get out. So I have essentially just screwed someone. And
Hmm.
that hit me hard, right? When I realized what was happening after I did it a couple of times, I was like, hold up, this is not okay. Um, but what I learned is that it doesn't matter how terrible you're trained or how hard your job is if you're honest
Yeah.
and trustworthy, you're gonna find success. And that's essentially what I did in that situation. I called my dad first, right? I said, Dad, hey, I don't think I can do this. Like, this is not okay. And he said, well, you can just sell it the right way, right? Like you don't have to sell it that way. And I was like, yeah, I guess. And so I did. I stuck it out the rest of the time I was supposed to be there and got less sales out of it, obviously, but I was happy and comfortable with what I was
Yep.
doing. And the customers that I served were happy with the product rather than upset. And my paycheck wasn't as big, but I was okay. And that, big lesson learned.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and I mean, I absolutely love that story because I feel like, again, anybody that's been in sales for more than, 2 or 3 minutes probably has at least some, similar stories. Maybe not exactly like that, but some similar stuff. And I know I do. Um, if you don't mind, Nick, I want to go off script here a little bit because I'm a really big, like, I love sales. I mean, I like, the art of it and the science of it where, you have to follow up with somebody, but it's very much like how you want to present yourself, how you want to present your product is, the very much the art of it. But I'm a really big believer that there's I think a really fine line that can be easy to miss sometimes in sales where we move from, persuasion, where we're not necessarily trying to talk somebody into something, but trying to present something in such a way that will lead them ultimately to taking an action. And like, I do believe that there's a fine line between, that version of sales and, some of the stuff you were just describing where it's manipulation and fraudulent and misleading. I mean, for you personally, like, how do you kind of define one versus the other? And like, is there like certain behaviors that you've seen in other sales folks that you're just like, yeah, this is definitely over the line for me?
Yeah. So the main thing, my main focus has become me, right?
Yeah.
If I can, I try to take a holistic look at the situation before I get in it anymore, because I
Mm.
didn't on that situation, and it really bothered me. Like, still to this day, that's like an experience that I share all the time. And I
Mhm.
mean, we're talking almost 20 years ago,
Yeah.
um, because it really sits on my shoulders still to this day. But what I've noticed is that instead of looking at a sales role as, hey, I'm going to go convince people to buy something,
Yeah.
and switch that instead to, hey, I'm going to go help people solve a problem,
Mhm.
it makes all the difference. If you're not solving a problem for somebody, then why are you selling something to them, right? You're not just in sales to make money. The whole point of companies as a whole is to solve a problem that people have, and then
Mhm.
obviously get paid to do that. And
Yeah.
and looking at the pay as a secondary rather than the paycheck is like, that's what I have to have, that's what I have to do. It's just a little mindset change, but all of a sudden it becomes helpful, kind, trustworthy. You
Mhm.
you are doing great things as a sales rep rather than a used car salesman type. These security guys that trained me, where they only kind to you until they get your money, and then you never
Mhm.
hear from them again. They don't
Y
want to give you their cell phone number because they're afraid you'll call them.
Yep.
Um, I have totally changed that in my. It's just a personal thing, right? And obviously, anybody I train now, anybody that I hired as for sales, we we do that. We push
Mm.
that. Hey, if you're unwilling to give them your cell phone number, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah. Yep. I love that. And I mean, I'm a really big believer that if you are pursuing excellence in sales and not just like trying to be the best salesperson, but pursuing excellence in serving your clients and your potential clients to the best of your ability, which in my opinion, like if I'm having a sales call with somebody and I really don't believe like that whatever it is I'm offering makes sense for them because of, any reason, I'm going to tell them that. Like, listen, like I don't think you should buy from me today.
Right.
Which I mean, I feel like a lot of sales people might be like cringing at that. I
And
mean, it's
it's
always
hard,
about
right?
that
Because
next
you
dollar,
see
but
that commission, like,
yeah.
man, I could really use that. That would be great for me. But
Mhm.
I at what cost, right?
Yeah.
Are you hurting a relationship? Are you putting someone in a worse position than they're already in? And that's kinda where the line is, right?
Mhm.
And I'm the same way. I will 100% say, "Hey, I don't think this is right for you," even though it means I'm not gonna make a commission. And that
Yep.
that is hard, right? That's a tough thing to do when especially when you're poor. You want to make
Yes.
money, right? You
Right.
you see that commission check coming and you got plans for it, and then you realize that no, this is not good for that person. You can
Mhm.
make a choice right there. Hey, do I push it on them and try anyway? Or do I back off? And there's also a third option there, right? Maybe I can cater this to them in a way that does make sense that we haven't
Yep.
found yet. And let's
Yep.
have a deeper conversation and see if there's more there, because like obviously you want to help them. So sometimes there is that option. When you're selling a product, sometimes that's hard. But for me right now, I'm selling custom software, right? And
Yep.
so sometimes it might not make sense to do it a certain way, but maybe if we pivot, it might be cheaper, it might be
Mhm.
more expensive, but it might be worth it for them to look at some other options too. So again, comes back to having an open mind and like just looking at it as a whole, like what's the best thing I can do here?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like ultimately, in my opinion, sales, if you're doing it with, honestly and integrity and ultimately with the goal of servicing your clients and customers, it's a long-term game.
Right.
And if you're just, trying to, shove a sale through, then ultimately that's just short money. Like that's like a short term, that's short-sighted. And over the long term, like that relationship might, like you said, might suffer as a result. But I want to dig into something else we kind of already talked about a little bit, and that is your wife's Etsy shop, because I just love that. I mean, like that. I love your commitment to, like, obviously your family when she was doing crazy things with the Etsy shop, and your willingness to dive into that with her, because I feel like a lot of guys, like, hey man, I'm the moneymaker, I do this, so being willing to say like, hey, like shifting your mindset and like, hey, I'm willing to do this for you. I'm willing to become, your partner, your employee, your stock boy, whatever it is to get that done. So how do you feel like that experience changed how you approach business now?
So that was a tough one in
Mm.
reality, right? I grew up in a fairly conservative household where the father makes money, the mom takes care of the kids, and that's
Yep.
how it is. And that's great. I have nothing against that way of living or anything. I think it's a really great thing for most people, and
Mm.
ourselves included. I mean, we're back there now, right?
Yep.
And in fact, it's funny that it is a mindset, because you would be amazed at how many people say something when they see dad taking the kids to the store without mom,
Mm.
right?
Yep.
When they see dad at all the games and all the practices, and then they ask, hey, they assume usually that I'm a single dad, because
Mm.
that's the only time dads usually show up for those types of things, because most of the time the dad's working. But when I tell them, oh, my wife runs a shop and I'm kind of the stay-at-home dad, um, as much as I was helping her with her business anywhere I could, I was the stay-at-home dad.
Mm.
And people, they're not okay with that. Like
Mm.
it was real that people would say things like, "Really? Like, why? Why do you do that? Why don't you go make the money?" And
Yeah.
I was just like, "Well, because she's way better at it than I."
She's got a bunch more than I do. I don't know what to tell you guys.
And she loved what she was doing. She had a real passion for it. I got to spend more time with my kids than I ever have. I would never trade those 5 years for anything,
Mm.
because I got so close with my kids that I mean, the relationship I have now with them is insanely good, and I'm
Mm.
so glad that I had that opportunity. Um, I learned that dudes can 100% change diapers. It's fine, and
Right.
I
That's
know
good to know. I'll write that down.
that that's more common today than it was, 20 or 30 years ago. Anyway, outside of my story, but like I that was me. Like that was my job now. I got the kids to school, I made their lunches, I
Mm.
picked them up from school, I took them to their after school activities, I changed all their diapers, I did everything, and it was great. And what it allowed us to do is, again, step back, open our minds and say, "Hey, this is an opportunity that's not worth passing up." And it wasn't.
Mm.
There is no, we have no bad feelings about that choice now, even though we're not doing it anymore. It was
Mm.
something that we are very glad we did. It put us in a great spot. It allowed us to buy a rental property that we wouldn't have been
Love
able to
it.
do otherwise. And it was tough sometimes when people would say things, but in reality, it was just a fantastic opportunity. But now, right back at it, I had to have my mind open to say, "Hey, this is over now too," right?
Yeah.
And jump back into sales. And that was actually harder for me than
Mm.
quitting my job in the first place, because like I told you, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I love business, and we were running it, and it was good, and we were making more money than we had ever made in our lives, and we were like, "This is awesome." And so when it started slowing down, and my wife got a little burned out and wanted to come back home, it was actually harder for me to say, "I'm going to go get another job," than it was for me to initially quit. Um,
Mm.
and so you gotta have, and maybe that comes from my laziness too, right? Hey, I haven't been working for 5 years. I don't really want to do that again. And but it all ended up okay. We got to a spot that I needed to do it, and I did it, and here I am. And but yeah, it's just I think people don't. I shouldn't say people don't. Most people don't open their minds to opportunities. That you get really stuck in I have to have a job, I
Yeah.
have to work hard, I have to work 9 to 5, and
Mm.
it's not always true. There are other opportunities and things out there. Money is not the most important thing, and
Yeah.
safety is not the most important thing. You can always make money somehow
Hmm.
if you get your mind open, right? And so it was really fun to go and try it, and it worked for a while, and then it didn't, and here we are.
Yeah. Well, I love that story. And I feel like you have such a unique perspective too, because like you said, like most people, I mean, probably myself included, just feels like we have to wake up, early. We have to wake up early. We have to be really committed. We have to be really intentional with our time to make sure that we're, moving our big rocks, as we love to say in sales.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like again, you just have such a unique experience because you've seen it both ways. You've seen it from that side where, hey, I got to get up and grind and move my big rocks, to like the stay-at-home dad where you get to spend a bunch of time with your kids all the time. Do you feel like having seen both sides of those things, do you feel like that's changed how you've, managed your time or just how you approach things now?
It does. So like I said, I grew up in a conservative home,
Yeah.
which is, hey, wake up early, go to work all day, come home, and spend some time with your kids if you can. That was kind of um I learned through this whole situation that your time is flexible. You do
Mm.
not have to wake up at 5 a.m. if it doesn't work that day. Are there
Yep.
benefits to it? Sure. In fact, I did this morning. There are great reasons to wake up early and get going. But you know what? If you've got a kid that's sick and up in the night, it's okay to get up and help them and not be upset with your wife, who's also super tired,
Yeah.
from taking care of them all day, and do it yourself and skip your morning routine once in a while. I think
Hmm.
it's great to have a routine and to follow a schedule, and it really gets things done. But just having your mind open to like, I can I can go to the gym in the evening if I need to. I don't have to miss it,
Yep.
right? If I can't get up at 5, I could do that later. I could do that on my lunch break if I have to. You
Mm-hmm.
can move things around. Sometimes jobs don't allow you to do that. Your 9 to 5 is really, really, strict and tight. I'm lucky enough to work at Red Sky where it's really flexible. As long as I get the work done, we are, good, which does require the hours, right? It's not
Yeah.
I'm just taking the hours off. But I can move them around, and if I can send emails after the kids go to bed, I put an hour in at 10 o'clock at night, and
Yep.
like you're still getting it all done, and you don't have to get wrapped into this thought that I work during the day, I get a few hours with my kids at night, and that's how it is. There's a lot of flexibility in life that
Mhm.
I feel like nobody talks about, and not everybody, again, most people get stuck in that, have to do it this way, and that's all I know.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite, little sayings, I guess, is, the only people that are going to remember that you worked late or worked overtime in 20 years are going to be your kids.
I just saw
And
that on LinkedIn yesterday, and I was like, that is but so I loved it, but I also hate the fact that it's kind of implying that you shouldn't work hard, which I also
yep.
don't agree with, right? I think that that's a good thing to think about is what are you giving up in order to work hard? That doesn't mean you should
Mhm.
stop working hard. It means you need to change
Yes.
some things around, still work hard, but remember what's most important, and that's your family and your kids. So,
Yeah. 100%. Well, and I think for me personally, like I've realized as I've, gotten older, had different careers, started a business and things, I've realized it, at least for me personally, I think it really comes down to intentionality, right? Like, and in the entrepreneurial world, like there's going to be days where you have to put in that, 12, 13, 15-hour day just to get things growing. And there's going to be other days where, maybe you get to take off at, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
And just, I mean, just being intentional with the time that you are allotting to both to work and to your family, I think is hugely critical and is easy to overlook. But I'm really curious because as we've talked about already, you've had a myriad of different careers and different industries and different businesses. So do you think that there's like a certain, like, are there any common threads, I guess, where if you have that thread, then you're more likely to be successful, kind of regardless of, whatever it is you're selling?
Yeah. So I think there's a few different things, right? And it's gonna go back mostly to what we've already talked about.
Mm,
Um, and there are some traits that people have that are good at sales, typically, right? They're persistent. They're not afraid of what they're selling. They're not afraid to talk to people. They're not afraid to push a little harder.
yep.
Those are all great, but in order to see success and long-term success in sales in general, goes right back to honesty and trust.
Yeah.
I've seen some of those guys that are not honest or trustworthy. They can make a lot of sales, but they don't
Yeah.
last. They don't
Yep.
last in sales. They jump from thing to thing, and they never update their LinkedIn with where they work because they don't want
Mm,
anybody to know. And so they can make a buck here and there, but they burn bridges everywhere they go. Um, but if you can do it with honesty and you're trustworthy with what you're doing, that's where the long-term success comes. Switching that mindset, like we talked, from sales to solving a problem.
mm,
You're not just trying to make money, you're trying to help people. Um, and when you can get it in your mind that you want other people to succeed, then
yes.
it makes it easy, right? To do it the right way for the right reasons. And so, um, kind of, the common thread there is that honesty and trust. I think that if every sales guy would have that, we wouldn't have such a bad idea about sales guys, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's like, I don't want to be sold. I don't want to be sold. And I get that because there's a lot of people that come in just to make a buck. But the people who do it long term and last beyond I mean, I've been in sales now for 20 years, and I don't have people upset with me. And not that I've never upset someone, right? Either.
Yeah.
That's not the case. But like I don't see a number on my phone calling me and I'm nervous to answer it. Like, oh, I
Mm,
wonder if this is that guy that messed with or whatever. It's like in fact, my wife gets upset with me because I answer numbers I don't know all the time. It's kind of my thing, and I know it's weird, but I am not afraid to have a conversation with anybody who wants to talk to me because I haven't burned those bridges with people that I'm nervous about talking to them. If they're calling me, it's probably for a good reason,
yeah.
because I know that I have put that out there in the first place. I don't intentionally hurt anyone or try to take advantage of them. And so I honest and trustworthy, and then I can answer my phone.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. Well, I mean, really what it comes down, I mean, I feel like we talk about it a ton in sales, as we've said, but is the relationship piece, right? Is like ultimately like what kind of person do you want to be in a relationship with? And I mean, like that's true for like personal relationships, romantic relationships, and professional relationships. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be best friends with somebody who you're in like a great professional relationship with, but you are going to find that respect and then ultimately that honesty and trust if it's going to last for the long term, right? But speaking of relationships, it's something we kind of touched on in your intro that I want to dig into a little bit more is faith. Like, that's I understand that's, not a big deal to everybody. But from, you and I talking off air, it's a big deal to both of us. So I'm really curious, like, how do you feel like your faith has guided you? And I mean, sales is all ups and downs. Like you can be, be on top of the mountain in the morning and be at the bottom of the mountain in the afternoon. So I mean, how do you feel like your faith has guided you through some of those ups and downs, both in sales and in entrepreneurship? And then how have you found that balance between faith and business?
Um, yeah, faith is huge for me. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints
Mm,
and have been my entire life. I went out and served a 2-year mission in West Africa for them. I currently serve in my local ward here. Um, it is it is my life, like faith and family. way over sales, right? So when we
Yeah.
talk about balance, it's not really actually super balanced because like I feel like I
One's way
got
more
my
important than the
focus.
other.
Right.
Yeah.
But obviously you have to provide for your family. You have to, I have to be a sales guy today. That's what
Mm.
I have to do. And so, but the reason that it's so important to me, and I learned this kind of recently, is that faith is the only thing that hasn't failed me in
Mm.
life. Um, I was a huge Utah Jazz fan for a long time, like
Mm.
the biggest. Like I
Mhm.
almost broke up with my wife because she laughed when we lost at a 3-point buzzer beater when we were dating. Um,
Mhm.
anyway, like they never won the championship, right? It never ended up well. They still to this day haven't. Work, right? I get all in at work and it's great, and I drink the Kool-Aid and I'm ready to go, and then they change the commission structure, or they
Mm.
let people go that I disagree with, or whatever. There's it, it kind of fails me no matter what. Personal relationships, even with your own family, your own wife, your kids. There's no relationship that's perfect
Yeah.
except for the one with Christ. And
Mm.
that's my 100% opinion. He's my rock. He is woven through everything that I do, which goes back again to the trustworthy and honesty in sales, right? I it has to go together. I can feel comfortable at church with what I'm doing at work if
Mm.
I have my focus on him and not on just the sale or just the girl or just the whatever. I mean, you name it, right? If your one true thing can be Christ, then everything that comes from that is good. Because, and I mean, prove me wrong here, but as far as I can tell, Jesus didn't teach anything bad.
Yeah. Well, so I'm right there with you. Like I'm a big believer. Like it's kind of what we were talking about with like the honesty piece, right? Like it's foundational, and it's found like my faith is foundational for me too, and it's the cornerstone of everything that I'm building in in the business world. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that with everybody I'm always like, hey, let's talk about coaching and speaking stuff, and then after that we're going to talk about Jesus stuff right away.
Right.
It's not always like that. But I mean, like, I do have clients that are, faith-based people too. And I mean, we always have like a very, honest conversation about it. But often when they are, as faith-led as I am, we will like start our sessions in prayer. Because I mean, I think it's important to invite Jesus into everything that we're doing. Again, not that you're doing that with everybody all the time, particularly, in the professional world. Sometimes that's not the right place for it always, but it's still a foundation to who we are and to how we are interacting with those around us. So I absolutely love that. Totally agree with you. Um, so as we kind of wrap up the show here, I mean, and we're still kind of early on in 2025. So what's on the horizon for you for this year? What are your goals?
So I've got a bunch, but I haven't written any of them down. So it's
Okay.
probably a problem. I know you're supposed to write them down. But so on a personal level, I have kind of always been the chubby kid ever since I was a
Mm.
kid. And so it's always been a goal of mine to get a little more fit. And
Mm.
now that I'm kind of older, everybody else is caught up in the unfitness, which is great. But I'd like to, eat a little better, hit the gym a little more often. I've been doing good since my New Year's goal,
Love
pretty
it.
solid. So I hope to keep that going. I want to make sure that my focus is on my to be present for my family, for my
Yeah.
5 kids and my wife. I want to learn and grow more spiritually. Read scripture more often, say better prayers, attend
Mm.
more church events and things, and read more books.
Love it.
Not spiritual books necessarily, but just books in general. I've not been a great book reader
Mm.
ever, and so I really enjoy books, but I have a hard time finding time to sit down and read them. And
Yeah.
so Audible has been awesome. I've started
Love it.
listening to them. It's not quite as good. I don't retain as much, but
Yeah.
at least I'm getting something, and so I've been doing that. Um, on a professional level, I am mostly trying to make friends. I live on LinkedIn. I am networking constantly. I'm here in Utah, and so I go to lunch almost every day with somebody that I meet from
Love
LinkedIn.
it. Yep.
So that I get a real. I don't just want a bunch of connections, right, on LinkedIn. I want real relationships because I feel like that's good for everybody, whether business comes from it or not. I feel like it's good to know people, understand them, and then if business happens to come from that, you know where to send it, and it's great.
Yep.
And so making friends, and obviously helping other people. My service is my love language, which is another thing going back to faith, right? A big thing that Jesus preached was service, and it's the thing that I love the most. The hardest thing for me is to try to charge people for my service. The money issue is the hardest part. So as a professional, I need to like work those together somehow. But I would love to find more ways to serve people professionally, whether that's making deals with them, and buy, even if it's just buying their product, right? Just
Yep.
Somebody's got a product that I use anyway, and I meet them. Let me buy yours instead. And it can be as simple as that. It's not really a change or something that's tough for me to do, but I would like to just find ways to help other people succeed. And then obviously, as we all want to, increase our income.
Yeah.
I would like to make more money professionally.
We can twist your arm on that one.
Yeah. So I just plan to work harder and work smarter. I know some people like to say work smarter, not harder. I think if you do both, you're going to be better off.
Yeah. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. You've probably seen the t-shirt. It says the harder I work, the luckier I get, right? It's true, and so I plan to just work my butt off, put the hours in, make a lot of friends, and I think I'll see more success from that. And so those are kind of my goals for the near future.
I love it, man. Well, I've got a book recommendation for you if you're interested.
Absolutely.
So it's a sales book if you like that kind of thing.
I do.
It's called The Challenger Sale. I don't know if have you heard of that?
I've read it. Yeah, I've got a physical
love
copy
it.
actually at my house.
I love it, man. So that's one I go back to time and again. That one's got so many gold nuggets.
It's probably been 10 years since I read it, so
ooh, okay.
Maybe I'll go pull it out. Thanks to you for your recommendation. I
Well,
can't even think of anything from it off the top of my head, so that means I haven't read it enough.
Yep. So maybe for a revisit. I love it. Well, Nick, if anybody out there, either wants to connect or maybe they're interested in some, custom software solutions, what's the best way to get in touch with you? Where can they find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn all day long. That's the easiest way to get me. I work at Red Sky Engineering. If you want to email me directly, it's just nick@redskyeeng.com. But yeah, I'm happy to connect, do video calls. They don't have to be recorded podcasts, but people that are not from Utah, right? I'm happy to jump on a video call and meet them in real life. We do high-end custom software solutions, which is it's not for everybody, and I get that. But if you'd like to learn more about it, or we also have a referral partner program where you can make money by helping us find people. Happy to talk to you about that. If you just want to talk about, faith or what your favorite food is or whatever. I literally love people. So please reach out if anybody sees this and wants a new friend. I'm happy to be that friend and connect and see if there's benefit. There's going to be a benefit to our relationship. Where that is, we might not know, but there will be one. So I'm more than happy to meet you and see and connect in real life.
Yeah, man. Well, so I'll make sure to leave all those links in the show notes so people can find you. Super easy. But Nick, thank you again for coming on. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks for inviting me. My first podcast, love it. Been a great experience. I really appreciate it.
Well, say you did a good job. But anybody out there listening, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. We have a powerful story of growth, resilience, and success. So I'm always looking for incredible guests just like you who bring insights and real-world experience to purpose-driven progress. So if you or somebody you know would be a great fit, make sure to head down to the show notes and hit the guest link. I'd love to hear from you. And let's share your journey with an incredible audience. And if you're loving the show, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's next. And be sure to send it to a friend.